Yeah, good morning, good evening to all of you, and thanks, Anna, Dr. Ash, Dr. Norma, Dr. Eric, am I audible?
Yes, yes, you
Yes,
are.
we can hear you very well.
Oh,
Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah. So it's a great pleasure participating and sharing screen with all of you. And I'll be talking on mitigation of maritime disasters from perspective of Indian Coast Guard. I'll start with, since this is a youth-led program and you're launching youth-led action and advocacy training workshop, I will touch upon many issues. So these are the dots, and when we join, maybe end of my lecture, some beautiful picture will be formed, and I am sure a lot of youth and young minds will be ignited with what I speak. To start with, our planet, which is 70% covered with water, has been named as Earth. So many believe that it has been wrongly named, but then even I do feel so. So oceans are important because 70% of our planet is covered with water, and oceans are cradle or font of all lives. But then it is breeding ground for many disasters also. So disasters such as cyclones, storm surges, tsunami. I am going to talk and touch a few issues as far as cyclones, tsunamis, and other things are concerned. But coming to oceans, it is important that we have ocean and coastal observations so that we have a better research, better forecasting technique, so that we are better prepared and we can forecast, and in order we can mitigate and recover from disaster. So for that, we need a strong forecasting and observation network. And our livelihoods are directly tied to the health of oceans. I am sure all of us will agree to that. As the largest ecosystem on the earth, the ocean supports human health, wealth, and well-being of coastal and even inland communities around the world. However, the ocean stressors are environmental stressors, population growth, and we have already discussed something about climate change. All of these are going to negatively impact the ocean unless and until there are coordinated and global actions. And as Dr. Norma has already spoken about SDG 14, I will not touch upon that. But the United Nations Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development 2021 to 2030 calls for the science we need for the oceans we want. And it has listed 6 societal outcomes for an ocean, something like a clean ocean, healthy and resilient ocean, predicted and safe oceans, sustainable and harvestable and productive ocean, transparent and accessible data and technology. So let us start with what I spoke about, breeding ground for many disasters and cyclone being one of them. I'll talk about India, and then I'll talk about Indian Coast Guard, which is the nodal agency for search and rescue in Indian search and rescue region. Indian EEZ is about 2.02 million square kilometers, and if you talk about ISRR, it is almost double. It is about 4.4 million square kilometers. So you can imagine, and we have a coastline of 7,516 kilometers. So that's a huge coastline we have to protect, to prevent, and Coast Guard 24/7 is, committed for that. Now let's come to the Indian Ocean. We have something called Indian Ocean Dipole. 18 and 19 have been very strong Indian Ocean Dipole year, IOD. Now what is happening? It's not like El Nino. El Nino is a global phenomena, but IOD is a regional phenomena. At the best, we can say that. And IOD is different from El Nino in the sense that the SSTAs, sea surface temperature anomalies in Indian Ocean, is relatively lesser compared to Pacific, where we find El Nino. However, El Nino is again very important. Indian monsoon are very strongly linked with El Nino. El Nino years are in general attached with not good monsoon years, not good Indian monsoon years. So IOD is slowly developing into a El Nino pattern. Is it not a reason to worry about? And why is it so? It is because of greenhouse gases, global warming. Global warming and greenhouse gases has got short-term and long-term effects. If we talk about sea level rise, again, very important, but one may say that it will take a long time. But what about cyclones? In 2018, Indian Ocean region has seen as good as 7 cyclones. And if we come to 2019, there were about 9 cyclones. Out of that, 6 were very severe cyclonic storm. So that makes our job even more complicated. Because Coast Guard is nodal agency for search and rescue, we have our our area divided into 3 areas, and we have 3 MRCCs, Maritime Rescue Coordination Centers. And if cyclone, the frequency otherwise is Arabian Sea, generally 1 cyclone per year, Bay of Bengal is 4 to 5, but 9 cyclones is unprecedented. So we need to enhance our capabilities as well as capacities. We need to have more assets. And if you see in last decade, Indian Coast Guard has grown almost 5 times. If you talk about assets or you talk about manpower. So what I'm trying to bring out here is Indian Ocean Dipole. Suppose it changes and it is something, it behaves like El Nino, then what happens? Although the research says it will be in later part of the century, but we have time for that. But for cyclones, which are far more frequent, far more intense, we don't have time. And we have to really address these issues. And Coast Guard, as I said, is 24/7. What we have done Indian Coast Guard was formed in 1978, and since then we have saved almost 10,000 lives. So that means almost one life every second day. That's, I mean, a huge achievement by any standards. In 2019 only, we have escorted about 6,000 fishing vessels, and we have conducted about 300 search and rescue missions. So what we do, if suppose there is a cyclone, first of all, we coordinate with Directorate of Fisheries. We tell the fishing boats that, okay, there's a cyclone likely, and with better predicting models and forecasting models, now we know a few days in advance that there is some cyclone forming in which area. So we tell fishermen not to venture in the sea, or we tell Fisheries Directorate that people who have gone out at sea, we have Navic and other apps nowadays. It is a software world. So we tell fishermen to return back for the safe passage. But then what happens if weather is bad, and it is frequently bad, and there are intense cyclones? The fishing boats, they have there's an increased chance of collision. There's an increased chance of fire also. Suppose the fishing vessel is using a stove for cooking, and there is a rough sea. It's quite possible that the vessel may catch fire. Many search and rescue missions which I have undertaken, I have seen fishermen, they are just holding on fishing nets because the fishing nets are having floats on the top. So they are surviving, and maybe a few hours, few days, and Indian Coast Guard has gone and saved them. So bad weather certainly will lead to a lot of accidents, collisions at sea, fire on board fishing vessels. So this is one aspect which Coast Guard monitors, and it is very important that academicians, they pay due attention, and then we evolve in a better system wherein these things are better coordinated. My earlier speakers have touched upon marine plastic. Then again, when we talk about maritime disasters, there are many disasters. Bay of Bengal has got an area of 60,000 square kilometers, which is called dead zone. That means the oxygen level in that entire area, just imagine the kind of area I'm talking about, 60,000 square kilometers is deficient in oxygen level. So now we know that oceans, there are different, if you talk about oceans, as we go down, the pressure increases, the temperature drops, the sunlight reaches only up to a few meters. So there are different kind of microorganisms which are surviving at different depths. So if there is a dead zone and there is a paucity of oxygen, what happens to all this? So I think this youth movement, I'm sure there will be few who will be interested to study this, marine scientists who are going to study, biological scientists who are going to take up this matter and see what best we can do about it. Because if these species, they're heavily dependent on oxygen, and this is going to be, we are going to damage the ecosystem. If we talk about statistics, in last 50 years, there has been 20 recycling rate has gone up only by around 9 or 10%. And it is estimated that about 10 to 13 million plastics from land-based sources are, going into the oceans. So we need to know, is there any knowledge gap about the biological and physical process that transport plastic through marine ecosystems and potential to humans? That is one aspect. I leave this dot so that we can connect it later on. I think Dr. Norma and Dr. Eric, Dr. Norma spoke about DFC mining. Yes, see what is happening is that scenario for sustainable transformation of the global economy to near zero greenhouse gas emissions in 2050 in line with the Paris Agreement and UN 2030 agenda for sustainable development relies strongly on renewable sources of energy. Even India is working a lot on renewable sources of energy. Suppose we are, and we have different sources like solar, offshore wind energy, but then what happens to offshore wind energy? For that, we started with permanent magnet. For higher efficiency, we are having a bigger offshore turbines, which are using now semiconductor generators. But then these generators, they require rare earth elements, something like neodymium or yttrium. Now, these rare earth elements, although are found at land sources, they are in abundance at the bottom of the ocean. And there are already people talking about exploring these. So are we going to study what are the harmful effects? Because I'll just give you one small statistic. 42 kgs of neodymium and 300 kgs of copper are required for each megawatt installed capacity for tapping offshore wind energy. That's phenomenal. We are going to transform, let's say, transport sector. From fossil fuel, we are going to have electric cars, but then it will come with its own set of problem. Where are the batteries going to come from? Batteries, they use lithium, cadmium, cobalt. So we will, sooner or later, we are going to explore oceans and we are going to dive deep into the oceans. Now, since 2001, there are about 30 exploration contracts for deep sea bed minerals, which has been approved. And these were initially granted for 15 years, but the contract has been renewed for 5 years. If we talk about Clarion Clipperton Zone, CCZ, as it's called, there are 17 of International Seabed Authority, which is also called ICA, contracts for polymetallic nodules in this CCZ region. But a survey shows that even a small area in that region has revealed that there are about 154 unknown Bristol worm species. I'm talking about one species. There may be numerous ones. So there is a risk of losing vast, unexplored, and unknown knowledge. So this is again a dot. We need to work on this. We need to study this. As far as India is concerned, we have also been given an area of about 75,000 square kilometer for deep sea mining, area which is called Central Indian Ocean Basin, CIOB. So what I'm saying is that seabed mining will be required for rare earth metals so as to reduce the greenhouse gases. So it is a cycle. You reduce greenhouse gases, you reduce global warming, you reduce sea level, you reduce frequencies and intensity of cyclone, but all these will require rare earth elements. So we'll require to undertake seabed exploration, but then this will have impact on marine life, ocean currents, marine pollution. What happens if the vessels which are involved, there is oil spillage? Oil pollution, of course, I'm going to touch upon a little later. So we need to study or assess the impact or try to quantify. So if we are going to affect the oceans, are we not going to again change the ocean phenomena like IOD, which I mentioned just now, or El Nino? So there is a possibility. So we need to study that. Now coming to oceans, we depend heavily on oceans. We have fisheries, tourism, eco services like food, recreation and heritage, human health, industries, nuclear plants, salt production, desalination plants, shipyards, all are situated along the coast. Most of them are situated along the coast. I think Dr. Norma spoke about, or there was a video about olive ridley turtle. Indian Coast Guard undertakes an operation called Op Olivia, which is conducted about 6 to 7 months because Orissa coast, Gahirmatha to be more precise, it's a breeding ground for olive ridley turtles. And there's a very famous saying, hot chicks and cool dudes. What happens if the hatchlings which come out, if the sand temperature is around 29 to 30 degrees, it is female hatchlings are produced. But if the temperatures are less, let's say around 25 degrees, male hatchlings are produced. So what was happening 2015, 16, 17, the sand temperature was more because there were there were very few cyclones affecting that region. So what happened? A lot of female hatchlings came out. That is the imbalance. But what happened in 18, 19, again, because of cyclones, which I just mentioned, the sand temperature dropped. And this time, there are reports that about 2 crore hatchlings have been sighted. So that's a huge amount. That's a phenomenal increase. So is somebody going to study this? This is again a spot, again a dot, which we need to join. So these are all, you can say, ocean disasters. These are all because of anything and everything related to climate change, greenhouse gas emissions, global warming. Human beings are responsible to a very large extent for whatever we are doing for damage to the climate and to the ocean. Now let's come to oil pollution. Oil pollution will primarily, Indian Coast Guard again is is a nodal agency as far as the government of India is concerned. Our area, we have 90% of the trade which moves by volume and 70% by value moves by the ships, because ships, we know that it's cheapest mode of transportation. Last 2.5 months, we have seen 2 incidences. One was MV New Diamond, which was off Sri Lanka. The vessel caught fire and Indian Coast Guard was actively involved in this operation. The oil tanker had about 270,000 tons of crude oil. Good that we didn't have oil spill, but then Indian Coast Guard had deployed 6 Coast Guard ships, and these ships were two were having integrated helicopters embarked on them. Then 2 Dornier aircraft and 1 warship of Indian Navy was pressed into that. Coast Guard has got pollution control vessels, 3 pollution control vessels, which are specially designed for controlling pollutions. So, and the second incident, MV Wakashio, which ran aground in southern part of Mauritius, the island nation. It had about 4,000 tons of oil, and spillage was estimated to be about 1,000 tons. See, what is more important in oil pollution is how much oil goes into the sea, and it is equally important where the accident or incident has taken place. In case of this particular case, the Mauritius case, which happened in end July 2020, the accident was near 2 environment protected marine ecosystems and the Blue Bay Marine Park Reserve. So that makes, if the oil pollution is at sea, it's not near the coast, it is still okay. We can say that because of weathering. Weathering means a process by which the oil will undergo, depending upon the sea wave conditions, tidal stream, sunlight, it will undergo through a natural process which is called weathering, and slowly or steadily it will dissipate. But what happens if the oil pollution is near the coast? We need to do something. Now we come to Indian Coast Guard, and I'll speak about the legislation part. The first Oil Pollution Convention, International Convention for Prevention of Pollution of the Oil by Sea, Oil Pole, was convened in 1954, and with an agreement of about 40 countries. Then came MARPOL, which we are all aware of. MARPOL lays very exhaustive kind of thing for oil pollution. It has got 6 annexes, and Annex 1 is related to prevention of pollution by oil. Annex 2 is control of pollution by noxious substance in bulk. Annex 3 is prevention of pollution by harmful substance carried by sea in packaged form. And Annex 4, prevention of pollution by sewage from ships. Annex 5 is prevention of pollution by garbage from ships. Annex 6 is prevention of air pollution from ships. And if we talk about history of this, it started the Torrey Canyon, which grounded near UK in 1967. It led to the discharge of about 60,000 tons of oil, and the British government ordered the wreck to be bombarded in order to burn the remaining oil. And it was criticized. And the question was, who is responsible for this? But subsequently, what happened? That International Law Commission justified the government action against Torrey Canyon, saying that it was the act of necessity. But thereafter, there have been 3 major international conventions. I'm not going to name them. One certainly, which is of more interest, is OPRC 90. It is International Convention on Oil Pollution Preparedness, Response and Cooperation 1990. And it was primarily because authorities faced logistical problems in coordinating cleanup action for oil spill, which happened in Alaska in 1989 by Exxon Valdez. And considerable time was wasted and spent getting access for international and domestic equipment and help. And the objective of OPRC, which was in 1990, are to facilitate international cooperation and mutual assistance in preparing and responding to major oil spills, encourage to develop and maintain adequate capability to deal with pollution emergencies. If we see UNCLOS 1982, there are 4 articles which are related to oil pollution. I'm not going to read them. And one another convention to my mind, which is very important, is OPRC, which is OPRC and HNS Protocol 2000. Then we have Ballast Waste Management, which is also called BWM Convention. And these are the conventions. Now coming to Indian Coast Guard capabilities, Indian Coast Guard has been designated as Central Coordinating Authority, which is also called CCA, for combating oil spill in Indian waters and undertaking oil spill prevention and control. And we have something called a document called NOS DCP, November Oscar Sierra Delta Charlie Papa, which is National Oil Spill Disaster Contingency Plan, which was first promulgated in
Sorry, Commandant, I think we lost you towards the very end. Do we still have you?
I think we lost connection there. Perhaps we can. I think it was down to the last few.
Can you hear me?
Yes. We
Yeah,
can hear you again,
yeah,
Commandant.
yeah,
If
yeah,
you could keep
yeah.
the end of your participation to with a limit of 30 seconds, it'd be great, as your time is almost up. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just conclude. I'll just conclude by saying that maybe next session I can talk about oil pollution, and what we have is we have booms and skimmers, and skimmers are basically operated on two principles. We can have oleophilic skimmers and non-oleophilic skimmers and all. And Coast Guard has got capability, and it is a nodal agency for responding to oil pollutions in our waters. And we have assisted the international community also, and the assistance provided to Mauritius and Singapore are in line with our vision of Prime Minister Mr. Modi, Sagar, which is a concept, there are platforms existing for execution as well, like IONS, Indian Ocean Naval Symposium, IORA. I'll just end with some thought-provoking statement. We are talking about marine disasters, but what happens? And we are talking about oceans, which we know. What happens if there is a marine disaster or maritime disaster in Arctic? We know that northern sea routes are opening, so more and more ships are going to be there. Then there is already a great power competition happening in Arctic. So if there is an increased military activity or increased shipping activity, it will call for a better preparedness for oil pollution and other things. If we see that, if we talk about Antarctica and say that, oh no, it's very far from land. But remember, 2019, we had about 56,000 tourists visiting Antarctica. So many ships, so many human beings, so much of activities, human activities. So aren't we heading for a maritime disaster? Even if we talk about global climate change, we are heading for maritime disasters. There will be more and more ships plying in that area. So that will cause for a lot of human activities. And it is better we be prepared for incidences like collision, oil pollution, or some kind of spillage. So with that, I will end, and I will request youth who are attending that I have touched upon many areas, many dots. So maybe we'll join and form a picture. You can already form a picture in your minds, but the picture says there is, the oceans are in danger, and we need to do a lot if we want to protect it for our future generations. Thank you.